Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merle Hutchinson, joined today by my beautiful wife, Miss Linda Hutchinson. Hey, Linda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, but I am itching. I'm itching to get started.
What are you itching for?
Well, I'm itching because we have a special guest today. And so if you're listening on a podcast, you can't see, but if you're watching on YouTube, then you see we have a special guest, a friend of ours, Scarlet Hudson. So we're excited about having Scarlet on.
Yes, we do. And I'm going to put a disclaimer up front. Normally we're doing a little bit of teasing and joking around, but this will be most likely one of the most serious shows that we ever do. And we want to give it its due justice in terms of handling it with respect, the topic that we're going to talk about, and of course Scarlet and the work that you do. So we're going to be in a serious mode here, but I think as you see the topic that we're going to talk about, you're going to see exactly why. So Scarlet, we want to welcome you to the Rock Solid Radio Show.
Thank you.
And today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to use probably not always the right words, but trafficking, okay? Sexual trafficking. I think sometimes we've heard like human trafficking stuff, but...
What do you prefer, Scarlet?
Yeah.
Well, we deal with the sex trafficking portion.
Okay.
Human trafficking encompasses like would be our people coming up from Mexico and being used as laborers
Right.
against their will and not being paid for their services. And so we see a lot of that too around farming communities and
Right.
stuff
So
like that.
sex trafficking is when we are seeing people against their will being put in the sex industry.
Absolutely.
Is that, okay, so
Yes.
just for the clarity. So that's why this is such a difficult and serious subject. And we're going to get into so much of this, but here we are in the wonderful Midwest, and you're telling us it's right under our nose.
Absolutely. Ohio is 5th in the nation for sex trafficking.
That's just crazy.
And a lot of that has to do with addiction. So where you find a lot of addiction and people that can't work and still need money for drugs, you're going to see sex trafficking.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to be talking about that in our show this episode, but we first want to thank our sponsors who have really come alongside us to have important conversations about things like this. And so we want to first thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside Rock Solid Radio, as well as Maxwell Construction. So thank you to both of those community partners who have really walked alongside us in having these tough conversations.
Yeah. We just need to thank all you listeners. We have had a major uptick in our listener and viewer base here in the last month and a half or so. And we just credit a lot of that to quality topics and just getting our guests on here. And just we appreciate our listeners out there and our viewers. Please, if you appreciate and like what we're doing here at Rock Solid Radio and in our ministry of Rock Solid Families, please give us a 5-star rating. Listen to our shows. Share our shows, okay? These are the kinds of topics that I want to be very careful in any of our shows not to spend too much time whining and complaining, because we do need to bring topics up to the surface so that we know that they are a problem. But I really want to be more problem solving. What can we do, okay? Because way too much out on the podcast industry and the news is all about just, basically putting a light on some of the obvious. How do we solve the problem? And so we're going to dig deep. So,
I love the story of Jesus of the lame man by the pool, where he looked at them and said, "Do you want to get well?"
Right.
And I know that's a huge theme that you use with your girls, Scarlet, and we're going to get to that. But, we believe here that we have the power. God has given us the power to really redeem those things, those broken places, those wounds that we've had. And so we're really here to talk about that and how we can be part of the solution. So we're thankful that you're here today. So, we want to get to a little bit more about Scarlet. So Scarlet, you and I, girl, are Northern Kentucky girls.
Oh
Now, if you're
my
listening to this in Ireland or India, you're not going to understand this, but we live in the Cincinnati tri-state area. and we are from the other side of the river.
That's right.
Girl, tell me a little
They
bit.
grew up like about a mile and a half away from each other.
We didn't even know each other.
And here I am, this poor Indian Hoosier trying to be with these wild cats.
No,
over
you're a
here.
West Side Cincinnati. Don't lie.
I'm a half and half. I'm
Yeah.
a split duck, so which makes me a mutt.
Yeah.
But no, tell us a little bit, Scarlett, just a little bit about your background and where you've been and where you came from.
Okay, so I came from Northern Kentucky.
Woo!
I was born in 1958, so I'm old. And
We
I-
didn't ask you to say.
Well, I'll give
Let's
that
be
free.
clear.
That's free.
That's
Okay.
getting younger and younger
That's a
every
free.
day.
That's a free.
Yeah.
That's a free thing. I went to high school at Dixie Heights High School. Go Colonels.
Yeah, down the street.
And then I went to Eastern Kentucky University. Didn't feel the social work nursing thing there, so I left and went to cosmetology school, and the rest is history. I ended up working for Matrix L'Oreal for many years, and then Tressa. So I really only have had 3 real serious jobs
Wow.
in my 63 years.
Wow.
Right? That's crazy.
Hair was one. What were the
Hair was
others?
one. I was a corporate trainer
Okay.
for Matrix and L'Oreal, and then I was education director for Tressa Inc., which started on your side of town in Western Hills.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Delhi.
how in
Okay.
the world do you get from the world of cosmetology to sex trafficking?
Good question.
I kind of want to hear this.
Yeah, exactly.
I ask God that all the time. What happened? Okay, so from the time I was really, really little, I always had this pulling towards God. Always. I was molested from the time I was 3 to I was 8. My parents don't know. Never will know. I won't tell them. My father's gone and my mother is still here. There's a lot of guilt and shame that's driven through that. And so as I became older, you hide a lot. Okay? So I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. A lot
the
of
crowns.
things.
Join
A lot
the
of
crowd,
things
Scarlett.
I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
Drugs. This sounds crass, but I told the girls, I gave it away. And they're like, oh no, Mama Scar, you would never do anything like that. And that's the redeeming part of Jesus, right? So they can see the redeeming part
Yes.
of Jesus, what he's done in my life. And so I took my Emmaus walk when I was 30 years old and just come out of a nervous breakdown, complete, and was redeemed through that. And God pretty much just, when he lays you flat out, you're going to listen.
Yeah. So let's pause here because there's a lot of people that are listening who have never heard of a walk to Emmaus.
Oh.
And it is an amazing experience. It's a non-denominational retreat that men take and then women take separately, different weekends of the year, all over the country, where people come together and experience Jesus Christ in a way they've never experienced before. And I was just telling you before we started recording, I believe one of the first times I met you, you were on the team that led my Emmaus walk.
I think so.
And it's crazy to think that that was probably 20 years ago and that God has brought full circle our ministries together in a way that we can be used by him. And so I agree that we all have those skeletons in our closet that Satan could use against us. But if we bring it into the light, God can redeem them. So I'm
Absolutely.
excited that Emmaus was where he got your attention.
Oh, boy, did he.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
Which, by the way, there's a website, I believe. I think it's...
Yeah, Southeastern and Indiana Emmaus Community.
There you
and
go.
Our walks are in October this
Yeah.
year for men and women.
Yeah, so you can actually Google Walk to Emmaus and find it in your local community.
It's great for people who are moving into leadership in their churches. Because you work a walk and then you give back by, or you take your walk, then you
Serve.
give back by serving. And so there are many levels that you serve under. Our girls that are at the farm right now are going on their walk
Oh, cool.
this October.
Oh boy, that'll
So
be exciting.
that'll be part of their
Journey.
recovery and their journey process, and they're super excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we didn't even mention the ministry that you are currently the founder of, the CEO of, and that's the Women of Alabaster. So tell us a little bit about how your experience and your revelation with God brought you to that place of giving back.
Okay. So in 2010, the Lord just laid it on me that I needed to go to Bible college. And I'm like, really? Because I travel all the time.
Right.
And I'm never home now as it is. And the end of my career was 10 years at Tressa, which is in Hebron, Kentucky. So I did travel some. I was able to make it home on Tuesday nights to go to class and fly back out the next day.
Wow.
Boy.
And then work hair shows all weekend and come back in and do it again.
You need a little bit more on your schedule.
I know. But when you work in the corporate world, and I think God was getting me ready for this, because you have to be able to be on your feet, turn on a dime, and you can't procrastinate. Because you procrastinate, people die. So, and that's just the bottom line. So, I started going to Bible college. Someone at my church said, hey, why don't you come out on the street with us and serve the homeless on Monday nights? And so I started going downtown on Vine Street when the homeless center was there, feeding, and I met a boatload of great people that were just lost and, been put in dire straits for whatever reason. And then they said, well, why don't you come under the bridges with us? That's a whole nother.
Holy cow.
That's a whole nother city and neighborhood. I mean, they got couches, heaters, and
Yeah.
you would be surprised what's under the I-75 bridge. And so I did that, and then on Friday nights, and the pastor that led it said, I really feel like your calling is going to be this ministry.
Wow.
And he said, this is the prostitution ministry, is what he said to me. So that night I went. I met a girl at 8th Street. It was the Holiday Inn down there. Now it's Equality. And it was the end of our night, and I noticed her across the street in front of the hotel, and she was crying. So I told the pastor, I said, y'all go ahead. I'm just going to go over there and just check and see how she is. And I could tell she'd been beat up. She said the guy up in the hotel had pistol whipped her, locked her in a room, made her have sex with multiple people, and she needed to get away. So she and I went behind the Holiday Inn, which was probably not the brightest thing in the world. But, sometimes when you're naive, you're just like, okay, she needs help, and I'm crazy enough to go back behind this building and hide with her, and stayed with her for quite a while that night. And she did have a cell phone, so I was able to communicate with her through the night to make sure that she was okay. On my way home, I lost it. I just completely, I just cried from, down in Lower Price Hill all the way to Dillsboro, Indiana, right where I live, and I'm coming in. It's like 4:00 in the morning. My husband's like, where have you been?
Yeah.
Surprised you didn't call the squad looking for you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And he's like, what happened? So I told him. And that night I knew that was it for me.
Wow.
That was
What
it.
year was that?
That was in 2010.
Wow.
So in 2012, I signed up for my 501c3. I got it in 2013, thanks to my husband. He sold his Harley.
Oh.
He sold his Harley, and he brought me my first van. I was doing it out of my brand new car, which he was not real happy with. And, I'm spilling chili all over it. And,
Bringing the girls food.
People are all in my car, getting in and out of that dirty city. And so I guess he'd had enough, and so I'm just going to sell this Harley. I got no dog in this show. That thing's going. She's getting a van. So I'll never forget one
That's a
Friday.
good van.
He's great. He paid for my 501c3 too. That night, when I flew in on a Friday night, and I pulled in my driveway, and I saw that van sitting there, and I was like, oh my Lord,
It's real.
I was
This is
so
real.
excited. This thing was a piece of junk, 2004 something.
Is that what you drove me around? Because
Yes.
is it
what I
really?
drove
You still have that van?
No, we gave it away.
Okay, because I remember coming down to the streets
Yeah.
with you and you driving me around.
Absolutely. That
And,
thing,
man,
oh, Lord,
yeah.
we're lucky we made it up and back. But anyway, it made it for a couple years, and we gave it away to another ministry because, with 501s, you're not supposed to sell. You should give everything away. So we did, and I got another one, And then I got the SUV that's sitting out in your driveway.
There you go.
So God has just been really faithful
Yeah.
and really good
Yeah.
to us. So I quit my job in 2015,
Wow.
much to my husband's dismay, because I was 55, and he wasn't real happy with me.
Well, it gets very real now. We're hitting pocketbooks. We're hitting time.
Yeah.
All of this gets.
But you took a
very
leap
real.
of faith there, Scarlett.
Well, I
and
really
God-
felt like it was time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God led you to this ministry. And man, I've seen the work that you have done. And a lot of people out there who don't know about Women of Alabaster, give them some idea of the services and the things that you provide or help with for these women and some guys in
Yeah.
sex trafficking.
Yeah. So we do have women and transgender men that we minister with. So we have a day ministry downtown Cincinnati. We've been in 2 locations. The first one was in the basement of an old church.
Which I was there.
Yeah, you were there.
Yep.
And then we moved to our new location, which is near CityLink downtown, which is a great, it's just a phenomenal organization for people that are coming out of the streets, need help. They're wonderful. I love them. And so we're right next door to them.
Okay.
We're in a building where we now have a medical floor.
Wow.
And we also have then our floor. So typically what happens in the day ministry, we're right down where the girls work that are still in active addiction and on the street, and they come in. Our focus is to make sure they know who Jesus is. Because we have had 13 girls die since last March. And so it's very important to us that they accept Jesus and know who he is. Because if they can't come off the street or are unable to do that, we know that if you make a decision for Christ, he comes to live inside of you. No matter what wreck your life is, he comes to live in. And so we believe that that's the most important thing we should offer these women.
And you know what, Scarlett, and I think this is important for our listeners because some people have the misconception that we clean up our act first and then Jesus invites us in. No. He sits in there with our messiness and he helps us. He gives us that hope. He gives us that help,
Absolutely.
that hand up to get out of that mess. So you don't have to clean yourself up
Nope.
to receive Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. He is the one that's going to redeem and he is going to be the one that heals.
Absolutely.
From the inside out.
You know, I've had girls come in downtown to the ministry, come in my office and just slide down the wall and say, if you don't help me right now, I need Jesus right now. And so it's quite amazing that happens on a regular basis. And I have to tell you that 90% of the women that we minister to know God and know Jesus. And they tell us all the time, if it wasn't for him, I'd be dead.
Wow.
So they're very well aware of God and who he is. And a lot of them have spent time in jail, so their reading material was the Bible.
Yeah,
and
the
some
only
of
thing they're
them
allowed
know
to
the
read.
Bible, I think, better than some people sitting in the church.
Yeah.
Because they can talk the Bible with you.
Isn't that crazy that even in solitary confinement, where you're not allowed to have anything or anybody, the only thing you're allowed to have is a Bible? Is that
Absolutely.
weird? And these are secular prisons that's what they allow.
Well, it may be weird, but it's great.
It's great,
Right, because
but it's
it's-
just funny because like they don't deny
Because
the truth, but yet they
Even these girls know where hope comes from.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's such a missing link for a lot of people. You know, what do you have if you don't have the hope of Christ? And that's
Absolutely.
where
Yeah.
these ladies do perish.
but
and
they
these
need some
men.
practical help too. So
Yeah,
what kind of
so
practical help do you provide?
We have counselors there. We help them get into detox facilities. We'll take them if they'll go. Last year we opened a home for women. It's in the country. It's a farm, which God showed me that in 2013. I drew it. It was very Maxwell Construction Company would not want me to work for them. I'm glad there's people that do what they do. But God gave me this vision, and 7 years later, at the beginning of COVID, in March, I get taken to this farm out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm like, really, God?
right
Now? It's
Isn't
been
that crazy?
7 years. And so this lovely man and his wife, who are Emmaus folks, he knew what my vision was because he'd heard my talk at Emmaus. So his father passed away, and we were said, come here and do the ministry.
Wow.
Amazing couple. We love them. And so we started Agape Farm August 3rd. We have in a couple weeks, we'll be having a year anniversary, which seems totally impossible. We've had 6 women through there. I've been staying there through the week and going home on the weekends. We have weekend mamas that come and stay with the women. It's been a little bit of a challenge. So I think God was getting my husband ready for this because I was always on the road anyway for 30 years. So, hey, he's used to
I don't know where she's at. She's just not here.
She's
right?
all over the country. So, and God bless him because he supports me 100% with what I do. There's been many times I have thrown up my hands and said, I'm done. I can't take this anymore. It's a very hard ministry. It's not for the faint of heart.
A lot of
People
very
see
messy.
the outside. We make it look pretty sometimes, what we do, and that it's easy, but it's not. So we still do street outreach 4 times a month. Two Wednesdays downtown, and then 2 in Hamilton. We've kind of opened up the door to Hamilton because that is an area that needs a lot of help, and we have plans to open a day ministry up there as well.
Wow. So a lot going on for Women of Alabaster, and so you have a website that they could look at and maybe even connect with as far as volunteering, donating. What is that?
womenofalabaster.org.
Okay, womenofalabaster.org.
Yeah.
And so we really encourage you to do that. But, Scarlett, obviously, as Merle said, we're trying to be proactive and we're trying to help our community, 1, with awareness, and 2, are there any common denominators that the women you serve, you see?
Well, I would say that almost all of them have trauma, early childhood trauma, and unresolved, like myself, unresolved early childhood trauma that can find its way out in many and sundry things. So, and some of the women, their mothers were out there, or they've been put out there by an uncle, or a boyfriend.
Yeah.
A so-called boyfriend. I don't use that term loosely.
Yeah.
And so they find themselves in these dire straits. Some of the youngest girl I saw out there was 11. She was with her dad. That was when I first started going out. He told me
on the streets.
Out on the street on McMicken, and he told me he was taking her to get ice cream. I said, "Well, sir, there's no ice cream parlors anywhere close to here." So that was very disturbing. And then the oldest woman was probably 59.
So if you're listening out there, what we're saying is that if you or someone you love has experienced childhood trauma, get help now. Help to heal those wounds in a healthy, biblical way so that they don't manifest themselves later and feeling worthless or hopeless or like trash, where they literally don't think they deserve anything better than being pistol whipped in the street or in a hotel room.
Absolutely.
And so please, because it's happening in all of our neighborhoods, in our next door, in our own home. And so we need to get ahead of this to make sure that we can do. So before we close, what do you want our listeners to know, Scarlett? What do you want to leave them with, especially our parents? How can we help to keep this from happening to someone we love?
Okay, so, be careful how early you give your kids cell phones.
Can you say that? Can you say that again for a listening
may have said
audience?
that before.
For the person in the back of the room that may not believe what we're saying.
Right. Be careful how early you give your kids cell phones. These traffickers are very savvy.
Yeah.
Okay, and they don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have a child that is shy, they go after shy, overweight,
Backward
children. They will go to malls and search them out. They will go to churches and search them out. Don't think that just because you're in a church you're safe. I've seen predators, and I call them predators, in a church situations, and that's sad to say. I hate to even say that, but we hear that a lot. In being on computers, kids should never be left alone in front of a computer. Right. You should never leave your kid. You should always monitor what they're doing on the computer. The games that they're playing now, Fortnite and those kinds of games, there's a way for these people to get in the back door on those games. And
because they know those.
Well, I know they're playing with headsets on and stuff like that, and they don't even really know who they're talking to.
They
on the
don't.
other side. Yeah.
They don't. And there's predators on the other side of many of these games. Be careful.
Yeah.
It's in the suburbs. We're not safe in the country. In fact, that's a place to hide children. Typically, with domestic minor sex trafficking, that's kids under the age of 18. They are hidden in houses. They're not exposed. They're not put out on the street.
So you don't see these as street kids, so to speak.
No.
Like you said, they're in apartments, hotels, houses.
If you're a realtor, pay attention. I went and did a talk for some realtors up in Dayton, Ohio, and it was amazing what they were telling us. And I said, well, you witnessed trafficking in your building that you own.
Yeah. One of the things that I've heard you say before, Scarlett, is that you know who your children are hanging around with, that you know their friends, you know those friends' families, that you get to know that those friends, that you just don't say, oh, you can spend the night at so-and-so's house. You don't even know so-and-so's family, that you get to know personally, that you know their numbers, their names, where they live and what they do, so that you're not just kind of assuming everybody has the right intentions. They don't.
They don't. I work with Shared Hope International, which deals with domestic minor sex trafficking, and there is a video we play at the beginning of our trainings called The Chosen. And one of the girls was a cheerleader in her youth group, great grades, upper middle class family, and she worked at a little cafe, I guess. This boy came in and some traffickers paid him to get girls out of the school lined up for them, and he befriended her, became her boyfriend, took her off to Seattle, Washington. The first night they were there, he set her up stripping, and it just escalated from there. She did get saved by her ex-boyfriend, who she took her mom and dad's car, and she called him and said, I need to get mom and dad's car back to her. So when she came to his house, the lady that runs Shared Hope was there to talk to her.
Wow.
And explain to her what had happened. So trafficking, sex trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion. So remember that. If your kids show up with things you didn't buy them that are expensive, that's what this guy did.
Yeah.
He gave her money. He did shoot a video of had sex with her, shot a video. Oh, your pastor will, think bad of you. You're going to ruin your mom and dad's blackmail. It's all very sick and twisted.
That's a good point, Scarlett, that our kiddos, our teenagers do not need access to a ton of money. And so if they have a lot of money, or you give them a lot of money, or they make a lot of money, please do some monitoring. Please do some oversight of where that money's going, what it's being spent on, because it may be drugs, it may be pornography, it may whatever. It's kind of a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. They say that the average kid, I think I saw this a few years ago, was $80 some odd a week to spend.
That's what the kids get.
That's a lot of money.
Yes,
that's a lot of money. And if they already have everything they need, what are they spending the $80 some odd on?
Right.
Because watch your kids if they start losing weight. Look at their arms if they start cutting. Cutting is a clear sign that they've been sexually offended.
Yeah.
Okay? I see that a lot.
Some kind of childhood trauma. Yeah.
I see it a lot.
Yeah.
So what, I'm from what you're saying here, I'm not sure if I'm getting a very clear, I'll say, stereotype of a predator. But what what do predators? What are they like? Is there a way that you can help people identify
Sniff 'em out?
predators? Yeah, I mean, is there?
Oh, I wish.
Because
Yeah, honey, that would be great if we had that.
Are we mostly looking at men, or are women just as much involved in this on the backside of the industry?
Higher up would be women, there are bottom, and I won't say the other word that goes with that, that are female pimps. And if you have a girl that doesn't feel right about herself, then they can, they're looking for that figure head that is going to give them what they need. Or if they don't have a mother that's over loving and that, well, then you can draw them in that way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't know any socioeconomic.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Or geographical. We're on the corridor, what I call the corridor. So corridor would go from Detroit to Indianapolis, down 74 into Cincinnati, over to 75, and all the way down to Florida. So moving people is easy that way. So pay attention to the cars around you when you stop at gas stations when you're traveling. Make eye contact with kids that you see with older people that don't quite look like who they should be with, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Watch, be aware. Jesus tells, we need to help one another.
Yep.
To help each other, we have to be aware of each
Right.
other.
And I think not just the creepy stranger in the car in the gas station, but what about the older gentleman who befriends your daughter or their friends, and it's just getting too close, too comfortable, too intimate? That's a red flag, okay? There should be boundaries there, healthy boundaries with especially younger and older people that just keep things, no private conversations, no intimate, emails and texts and snaps. Like, let's make sure we keep that at bay, because that's kind of where it breeds. I see it a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Adults shouldn't be allowed to touch your kids.
No. Or have secret conversations and relationships either.
No.
And we need to tell our kids that really young, really early, so that when they are a teenager, they already know that's not okay.
It's not okay.
That they're sneaking around and asking you to hide or sneak or lie to the people that you trust in.
Right.
Those are
We're
red
trying to
flags.
make adults out of kids. We need to stop it.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing a whole generation lost. And it's just not for this particular subject, but we're seeing a whole generation of kids that are completely lost, that have not been allowed to be kids.
Yeah.
I played with Barbies till I was 13.
Yeah.
Okay? Oh my gosh, if you play with Barbies till you're 13 today, they think there's something wrong with you, right?
Yep. If you climb a tree at age 10, you're weird, because you should be in playing Game Boy or not Game Boy. That's a really old,
That's
Yeah.
really old.
Xbox or whatever.
Right.
But I also see, Scarlett, not just trying to force them to be an adult as much as there's almost a level of neglect, because there's no parental
Supervision.
interaction.
Yeah.
And so the kids are home by themselves, and
Bored.
boredom and the computer and the phone, as you mentioned before. And so mom and dad both working, and they have all this idle time. And so it's not of a kid's nature to just always want to go out and play, especially when there aren't any friends in the neighborhood or whatever. And so I have
Or
to
it's
entertain
hot.
myself, or it's hot. So it's very difficult for the kids, and it's very easy for them to get distracted by things that have glitter.
Absolutely.
that are flashy.
We're not parents because we're to be their best friend.
Right.
You're their mom and you're their dad. God gives us a snapshot of what that looks like. So from 0 to 6, you're training. From 6 to 18, you're teaching. And then you send them off to college, and hopefully with all the teaching and training you've given them and their foundation in Christ, they're ready to go out and do and you can release them knowing that you have given them the best part of you, right?
And Scarlett, what's interesting is that I've known you for many years, and your nickname is Mama Scar.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of these, especially girls and young women, they didn't see that growing up. They didn't have that teaching and that training and that loving and those guardrails and parameters to limits to understand. And you've given them that. And so you have a whole generation of young women now who are learning that because of you and your ministry and the other women on your team that have just loved these women to know Christ and to know what healthy looks like. And you know what? We all can do that. We all can do that. And so if you're listening out there and there's someone that God has put in your life that maybe didn't have that upbringing, who didn't see that in their own home, be that person in a healthy, respectable way. Be that person that shows them who God is, what hope is, what healthy looks like. And that's what we need to do as body of believers and followers of Christ.
Absolutely, because we're told to go out and make disciples.
Yeah.
Disciple one, help them disciple another one, and it's just like this trickle down effect. And when you have the body of Christ being the body of Christ, you have changed a whole generation of people.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we, you know, when I was younger, my parents didn't go to church. But I as I told you at the beginning, I had this draw. I knew I was going to need God at a very early age. And he never left me, even in my mess. And, you know, my parents would take me and drop me off, right? Wow. Be that family that goes to church together. Yeah. Churches aren't for pretty places all the time, but you know what? Neither is life. No. So we, you know, the Bible says...
It's not a museum for saints. It's a hospital for sinners.
The Bible says, train up a child as he should go. When he gets old, guess what? He remembers. I remembered everything that God, that the people that poured into me at the churches I went to, everywhere we moved, there was a church. It was God. You know, there was one in our backyard, literally.
That's cool.
In Lookout Heights. St. Paul United Church of Christ, they were building it when we moved in.
That's cool.
All I had to do is walk out the back door and up a little hill. God, you know, God places himself at the places we need him. Yep. And we just have to open our eyes and see him.
Yeah. So as we kind of close here, Scarlet, what is one thing you want to leave our listeners with, making sure that we've covered what you wanted to cover, but what would be something that you would want to leave our listeners with and help them to understand or to remember as they listen to the show and maybe pass it along to someone else?
Don't judge. Don't judge. Don't judge.
You don't know what's going on.
You don't. You know, we were on the street a couple weeks ago. This girl was covered in mess sores. I couldn't stick my little finger between anywhere on her body. Wow. And she pulled up her little shirt and she showed me she's 5 months pregnant. And we always pray with the girls on the street after we give them something to eat. And she said, I don't know if you should touch me or not. And Jesus said, oh, yes, you are. And I just laid my hand on her stomach and began to pray for her. Wow. And she started bending over. It was like she was given into Christ. And if I had judged her, oh, Lord, what would that, as a pastor, what does that mean? What does that say about me? We need to be conscious of what's going on.
Right.
And there are ways to protect yourself. It's not that big a deal. But she needed somebody to touch her. And God knew that. And so just don't judge. Yeah. Don't judge anybody.
Yeah. Love them the way Christ loved us. We didn't deserve that. We don't deserve his love. And so those that we're going to see, those that we're going to help, maybe somebody lives right next door or somebody that walks in your home, that they need to see the love of Christ in us. And they see it in you. And so we're so thankful for you, Scarlet, and just the ministry that you've done and the way that God has used you, even in your mess, you know, and that he has taken that and become your message and your ministry. And so we're so thankful for you.
Thank you.
And we thank you for just spending this time with us.
Thank you for asking me. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's a great message. And it's, I wish we could see us getting a handle on it, but I think, you know, one of the reasons why rock solid families exist is because the family is the first preventative solution to these things. And a strong family, a healthy family, bringing our kids up right. And so If you as
Not
a
perfect.
parent are wondering, no, we know that part for sure. But if you as a parent are wondering what you can do in your own home, start with your family, start with your marriage. Keep your marriage solid. Keep your kids solid in terms of bringing them up in the church or with Christ, and teaching these values of how to grow and protect and to know God's
Forgive,
word.
yeah.
So what a huge message here. Scarlett, thank you so much for this. This is the type of show that you do share, and hopefully this is the type of show that is on the preventative side. Scarlett, you get to see kind of the emergency room side. You're out on the street seeing that, but as much of our work, we want to be on the proactive side.
Absolutely.
And so if we can get this to younger families and parents to say, hey, this is nothing that we ever want to deal with, how we can start doing things the right way in our community.
Yeah, and invite us in to do Shared Hope training, which is
Yeah.
education training for domestic minor sex trafficking. It's geared toward churches. We have a faith-based program and youth groups.
Yeah.
And, make your congregation aware.
Yeah.
Make your moms and dads, it's responsible.
Yep.
Being responsible. Make your mom and dads aware so we don't have another generation that finds themselves trapped out there
Right.
with, like you said, no hope. Because when you lose hope, then that's when suicide and a number of other things come in.
Yeah.
We can't bury our heads in the sand. So as we close today, again, we want to thank our sponsors, Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction, for coming alongside Rock Solid Radio and important shows like this one. And we thank you for Scarlett. Again, womenofalabaster.org is how you can get connected to Scarlet Hudson's ministry and the women that just minister to those that are on the street in crisis mode and really in very fragile situations that they just need to know and understand the love of Christ and get the help that they need. So we appreciate your help. So
Thank you.
So we want to again thank all of you for listening to Rock Solid Radio, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.